Good morning, everyone. Firstly, we all welcome Mr. Amit Grover. Mr. Amit Grover, and thank you very much, everyone, for taking out time on this Sunday, Baisakhi. Wish you all a very happy Baisakhi. Taking out time on this holiday and joining us. So, a brief about how we'll go about it. Firstly, quick introduction of Mr. Amit Grover. Then I'll hand over the screen to Mr. Amit Grover, and then at the end, we will take selected 4 to 5 questions. So if you have questions, I'll just spell out my number. We'll also share the number at the bottom of the screen. Please forward questions to us. Now the questions can be portfolio specific or a fund specific, because that discussion can kind of become endless. So we are trying to only look at the market conditions today, and we will try to concentrate on that. Now, a quick introduction of Mr. Amit Grover. He's a mechanical engineer, MBA, CFA level 3 candidate with 16 years experience in financial services, in wealth management and training. His last 2 stints were in HDFC Mutual Fund and DSP Mutual Fund, heading learning and development. He has conducted more than 1,200 sessions pan-India for banks, national distributors, mutual fund distributors, RIA, and most leading corporates of the country. The topics covered in these sessions include equity, fixed income, behavior finance, international investing, history of markets, macroeconomics, and personal finance. He has written personal finance, investing, and behavior finance articles that feature in financial newspapers. Now, today, if I am not wrong, I think we are going to be dealing mostly with behavioral finance, but I leave it to Mr. Amit Grover to kind of take on from here. Sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sunilji. Thank you all participants. Wish you a very happy Baisakhi. Thanks for taking time on a Sunday to understand what's happening in the world and also understanding what's happening in India, and how do we look at investments, how do we look at equity, how we look at gold, fixed income, real estate, the art of financial planning. So we'll try to answer all these questions in the next 30, 35, 40 minutes. So my first slide, okay, and I'm not going to show you any data over here, because I just want you to visualize, okay, because शायद picture वो justify नहीं कर पाएगी जो मैं आपको कहने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ. So I'll just take an example of our fund, which is HDFC Mutual Funds Fund, and that's just for example. I'm not telling you invest in this fund. It is just an example to understand how wealth gets created over a longer period of time. So we had this very simple fund, which is called a flexi cap fund. Flexi cap means the fund manager will take large cap stocks, mid cap stocks, and small cap stocks. We started this fund back in 1995. So this fund was launched on 1st Jan 1995. And as we speak right now, it's almost been 30 years. So on 1st Jan 2025, this fund completed 30 years. So in this 30 years, when we started the fund, it started with the NAV of 10. And when we look at the NAV on 1st Jan 2025, that is after 30 years, the fund's NAV moved from 10 to almost approximately around 1900. So if you do a simple maths, in just one matter of 30 years, the NAV moved from 10 to 1900. That means the money multiplied almost 190 times. Yes, you heard it right. Your money multiplied 190 times. That means if an investor would have invested back in 1995 for just 1 lakh rupee, the value as we speak right now is approximately equal to 1.9 crores. At the same time, if an investor would have chosen to do an SIP, and I'm sure all of us know what an SIP is. Let's say a 10,000 rupees SIP. A 10,000 means over a period of 12 months, an investor is investing 1.2 lakhs. In 30 years, he invests around 36 lakh rupees. The corpus at the end of 30 years becomes approximately equal to 20 crores. Yes, you heard it right. A 36 lakh rupees investment through SIP over 30 years, the value becomes 20 crores. This is the power of equity mutual funds, patience, time, discipline to create wealth over a longer period of time. Now, when I tell this story, it sounds like a fairy tale. A lot of people say, wow, that's the kind of equity I want to make these kind of returns. But we all know, unfortunately, people get carried away by the outcome. They never ask the journey. Okay, what is missing? Because every success story has a journey, and obviously in every journey, okay, any successful journey, you have ups and downs. So let me first of all give you the entire journey, a snapshot of the entire journey in just matter of 2 minutes, and then I will also tell you the uncertain situations which happened in the entire journey. So the moment we started the fund in 1995, for the first 2 years, actually the fund gave negative returns. Okay, 96 was not the best year for equity markets. Markets were down. Even 97, markets were down. So most likely, if an investor would have started his investment journey with 2 years of negative return, most likely he would have redeemed his money or stopped his SIP. Even 1998, the first half, the markets were not delivering good returns. But 98, second half, 99 and 2000, these 2.5 years were very good for equity markets. I'm sure during these times when an investor would have seen good returns, again, he would have got optimistic, positive, said mutual funds sahi hai, and got completely charged up and invested more money. But unfortunately, in the year 2001, 2002, 2003 mid, again for 2.5 years, we saw markets correcting and a lot of people getting disappointed in the entire journey. Then I'm sure history would have repeated. A lot of investors would have got disappointed, redeemed their money from equity markets, stopped their SIP. But then again, we saw markets rising in 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, and till beginning of 2008. For good 4.5 years, we saw markets rising. And when we say market rising, doesn't mean a straight line. Obviously, even that also had its own share of ups and downs. But suddenly in 2008, we saw something called as global financial crisis, because of which markets globally, it started from the US, the anxiety and nervousness, but it spread across the world. Globally, all equity markets corrected, including Indian equity markets, which saw a sharp decline in the returns of equity markets. And if I try to recollect that movement well, majority of the investors had panicked. They thought that the world will come to an end. The world will go back into Stone Age. India growth story is over. And majority of the investors were talking about redeeming their money. But the very next year, 2009, things became normal and we saw a sharp rebound on equity market. Whatever equity losses which took place in 2008 got recovered in 2009. Then for a couple of years, we didn't saw markets delivering great returns. So 2010, 2011, 2013, 2014, 4-5 years were a very muted period for equity market. ना मार्केट ऊपर जा रही थी, ना नीचे जा रही थी, बस एक ही जगह पे चुपचाप अटकी हुई थी. This can also be very frustrating for an investor because during these times, other asset classes maybe gold was doing very well or real estate can be doing very well. Interest rates during that time was doing quite well. Investor would have got frustrated. I have put money in equity, it's going nowhere, but other asset classes are giving good returns. But then 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, these 5 years, equity market gave decent returns. I would not say very good return, but decent, slow and good returns. Okay, and return which is quite respectable. But yes, at least on a positive side, going up slowly and gradually. Suddenly in 2020, we saw markets correcting because of the global uncertainty which came because of COVID. We saw globally equity markets correcting, and it didn't spare even Indian equity market. We saw a sharp decline in equity markets in March 2020. And then after that decline, when everybody thought, let's remove money from equity market, again, everybody had predicted the end of the world and things and businesses will fail. Again, we saw markets rebounding in 2021, 22, 23, until mid of 2024, where markets were doing well. But then again, from September 2024, we have been seeing some kind of uncertainty and markets again going down. So you would, if I have to do a snapshot of the entire journey, you would realize that markets was never going up in a straight line. In the entire journey, markets में कभी अच्छा वक्त था जब markets अच्छा कर रही थी, कभी बुरा वक्त था जब market uncertainty से जा रही थी और गिर रही थी, और कभी-कभी बीच में बोरिंग वक्त था जब मार्केट कहीं नहीं जा रही थी. So I'll repeat what I said. There were good times in equity markets. There were bad time in equity markets. There were boring times in equity markets. But if you look at the entire journey of equity market, in the long term, it went up. Now, and that's why we always keep on telling all our investors that basically when you are investing in equity, you are not investing, you are basically a part owner of that business. Okay. Let's say when you invest into an HDFC flexi cap, the fund manager and the team of analysts have bought quality stocks for you. And the objective of a fund manager is twofold. First, to do amazing research and buy good stocks in your portfolio. Second point is, which is a very best thing from a risk management perspective, your money is not getting invested in one stock or one sector. It is getting diversified across various stocks and various sectors. India is amazing. India has practically all sectors one can imagine of. We have got IT, we have got pharma, we have got banking and financials, we have got oil and gas, we have got telecom, we have got manufacturing, we have got consumer staples, we've got consumer durables like washing machines, ACs, we have got telecom, we have got metals, we have got minings. So basically all possible sectors which you can think about, all possible sectors are there in equity market. Now, again, you might say, okay, fine, ye paisa to ban gaya, but you don't understand what's happening right now. And my next slides will be trying to explain you with data point what's happening right now. But I'm just telling you the general uncertainty which people are facing. Amit, this is different time. You don't know what's happening. Donald Trump is increasing tariffs. The tariffs are on across the world. It's more on China. Suddenly, global trade will break. Things will go bad. The world can go into recession. And you might say, these are uncertain times. And how do we deal with uncertain times? My humble request is to always look at history and understand at which point of time was the world certain or uncertainty was not there. Again, I'll take you back into history of last 30 years. 30 years back, when we started the fund, 95, 96, during these 2 years, we saw something called as Asian crisis. Southeast Asian countries like Taiwan, Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand. Okay, these countries were the stock markets were correcting. They were called Asian tigers, but suddenly equity markets started correcting in these Asian tigers, Southeast Asian countries. Even our equity market became very anxious and markets started correcting. 1998, everybody knows the period of Vajpayee government, and the first thing what he did when he came to power was a Pokhran test, a nuclear test. And the moment we did it, the Western countries, okay, had put so many sanctions on us. We were not much aligned to the West at that time. The kind of sanctions which you can see on Russia or Iran. In the similar way, we had severe sanctions on our country. I'm sure during these times, most investors would have said, oh God, so many sanctions, the world is isolating us, not the best time to invest. 99, we all know about the Kargil war which took place. It was a war which almost was for the period of 5 to 6 months, a period of uncertainty in the country. 1999 was about to come to an end, and we saw uncertainty because of Y2K, a computer program, a computer bug. Everybody thought all the computer system will fail. The beginning of the century, the beginning of 21st century, we saw IT.com tech bubble taking place, because of which global uncertainty took place and globally equity markets were correcting. 2001, I'm sure all of us remember the Ketan Parekh scam and the attack which took place on Parliament, and what happened in America, the September 11, which changed the relationships of all countries across the world. 2002, we saw something similar like COVID. It was called SARS in terms of a virus, a global pandemic. Thankfully, it got managed. But then, end of the year, we saw Godhra riots taking place, which tarnished the image of the country. A lot of people were uncertain about Indian economy, markets, and investors investing in India. 2003, we saw a war between US and Iraq. It was a full-fledged war happening between US and Middle East, a very powerful country called Iraq. 2004 beginning, we saw Vajpayee government, BJP government or NDA government losing very badly in the elections, and markets were in a very uncertain zone. In fact, we saw markets correcting 10-15% in just matter of days. 2004, 2005, and 2006, the Fed, the US Fed, it's like the RBI of India. Okay, they have Fed increased interest rates 17 times in just matter of 2.5 years. creating a lot of global uncertainty across the world. 2007, we saw a lot of FII money moving out of the country because a lot of money was coming to participatory notes. In simple bhasha, it was benami naam se paisa aa raha tha. SEBI and RBI and a lot of regulators were not very happy with it. The money started moving out, creating a lot of panic in the market. 2008, we saw a global financial crisis which took place, creating so much uncertainty, and the biggest companies of the world going for bankruptcy, including Lehman Brothers, AIG, one of the biggest insurance companies, and many banks failing. 2009, we saw a global recession which took place. 2010, we saw uncertainty again coming up because of corruption cases, the Commonwealth Games scam, the 2G Ghotala, the Colgate Ghotala, and the rise of Anna Hazare and the entire anti-corruption movement which took place. And we were very uncertain about the country, what's happening in our country. All we can see is corruption, corruption, and corruption. 2013, we saw a lot of European countries going in default. They were called pigs: Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, Spain. At the same time, US talked about increasing interest rate. The term what they used was taper tantrum. And at that time, 2014, India had a lot of... I would request participants to please be on mute. So 2014, we saw a lot of uncertainty in our country's economy, the macros. The GDP was not doing well. The currency was depreciating. The fiscal deficit of government was very high. Current account deficit was very high. India was called a fragile country which is not doing very well. Then post that, we saw a banking crisis which took place in India. A lot of banks showing big NPAs and some frauds coming out. And there was uncertainty during that time. 2016, we saw Brexit, a very big global event, which people thought will bring the world and Europe into recession. Then we saw demonetization taking place in our country. Half our economy works on cash. We all of us know that. And suddenly, if cash moves out of system, everybody thought the economic system will fail or might slow down badly. 2017, we saw tariff war. Donald Trump talking about tariff war for the first time when he came to power. And that's the time where the world panicked because they had heard this word for the first time. And people thought globalization is over, it's finished, and the world was in an uncertain zone. We also saw GST, amazing reform, but it came in haste. A lot of states were not happy. Big companies were not happy. The small dukandar was absolutely not happy with it. Anxiety and nervousness related to GST. And then there was RERA reform, a good reform on real estate, but construction activity had slowed down. 2018, we saw ILFS crisis, a big problem, a big challenge. A lot of people said India's infra stories got over. And then we saw NBFC crisis in 2019, Diwan housing, and so many NBFCs failing. Then 2020, that's just 5 years back, we saw COVID, credit crisis, India, China practically on a verge of war. 2021, we saw severe lockdown in China. Their vaccine efficacy was very low. Their tech companies were correcting. At the same time, their construction companies, many of them were going for bankruptcy. And people started saying the next crisis is going to come from China. 2022, we saw a beginning of the year. Okay, we thought COVID is over, things might be good. But suddenly it started with the Russia-Ukraine war. A very uncertain period. Inflation across the world was more than 40 years. We saw a crypto crash which took place. RBI increased interest rates 6 times in just a matter of 1 year. Fed increased interest rates 11 times in just a matter of 1 year. 2022 was a very uncertain period for equity market. 2003, we saw Adani issues taking place. Then US banks, Silicon Valley, First Republic Bank, defaulting and going bankrupt overnight. And then suddenly the anxiety moved to Europe, where Credit Suisse, one of the biggest European banks, filed for bankruptcy. And then 2023, we saw Israel and Palestine war starting, and everybody had declared the start of World War III. 2024 was also not less with anxiety. A very unique year where 80 countries went for election. It never happens where 80 countries go for elections. And the interesting point is, in most economies, we saw political regime getting changed. For some reason, people want change. What change they want, they're not sure about, but they're not happy with the current establishment. That's the kind of scenario which is happening in the world. And what happened because of that? All the regimes across the world, majority of them got changed. Thankfully, India had the same political regime. Markets like continuity, political continuity, and economic continuity. But look at all countries. If you're a student of world politics. Look at our neighbors, Pakistan, Bangladesh. The complete the governments got changed. Whether it's Mexico, South Africa, Britain, Italy, France, US, majority of the countries, the governments have got changed. Now, why I'm telling you all this stuff? Okay, and last couple of months now, Donald Trump has come in and he's talking about tariffs. And I'll explain now in the next slide with data point why he's talking about tariffs. Now, the reason why I told you the entire journey and all the anxieties which took place in last 30 years, just to help you understand that don't feel that the world will be a certain place. The names of uncertainty keep on changing. World was an uncertain place, is an uncertain place, and will always be an uncertain place. There will be always be noise in the equity markets. The name of uncertainties will just change. The name of problems will just change. But globally, this is how the world has always been designed. And because of these uncertainties, whenever these uncertainties come up, markets see some kind of emotional behavior where they react to uncertainty, and we see some kind of volatility which happens in the equity market. The reason why I just explained you history is just to tell you that this is how history looks like, and this is how the future will look like. In Hindi, the past is called as kal, and in Hindi, the future is also called as kal. So when investors generally ask me, Amit, how will the future look like? And my simple summation and answer is, look at the past. The past, if you look at last 30 years, there was never a dull moment. There was never a moment of certainty. There was uncertainty all this while. There were ups and downs in the entire journey. In the similar fashion, in the next 15, 20, 30 years, again, you will see a lot of uncertainty in the world. Again, you will see a lot of ups and downs in equity market. But the beauty is India is an amazing growth economy, which I'll show you in the future slides about the India growth story. And since India is growing in such a phenomenal rate, the companies do well. Because companies do well, they make more profits. And that's the reason why the shareholders or the investors in these companies using mutual funds make amazing returns over a longer period of time. So that was my simple, like couple of minutes to help you understand that why one should be an amazing equity investor, why one should be investing into equity from a long-term perspective, why one should continue with their SIP, and why one should not react to any market news or information which comes in the entire journey. One should neither react to ups, neither one should react to markets going down. That's the nature of equity market. And we cannot do anything about this nature of equity markets. That is the nature of equity markets. Now, let me explain you basically what's happening in US. And this is where data points become very important. You will be trying to figure out, why is US saying that I don't want to be part of NATO? Why is US telling Japan and Taiwan and maybe South Korea that please take care of your own defense? I'm not ready to fight your war. Why is US saying that, you know what, I don't want to be interfering in Russia-Ukraine conflict? Okay, I don't want to be spending my energies and money over there. And the answer lies in economics. The answer lies in maths. So if you look at this slide, in year 2000, the debt means the udhar of US government was
Sir, your slides are not moving.
Is the slide visible? The federal
No. You need to present, sir. At the bottom of the screen, you have the up arrow. You have to go to.
Okay, just a second. I'll start it again. 1 second.
You come to Google Meet, sir, not your presentation. I think you were on your presentation so far.
Okay, so I start sharing my. Okay, can I start with sharing my?
Yes.
Is it visible now?
Yes. Now we can see.
Sounds good. Perfect. So till now, whatever I was speaking, I was not showing any slide. Okay, this was just a simple market view. The reason I wanted to keep it blank is just to help you visualize, because sometimes charts don't do that much justice to what I wanted to say. But now let me explain you what's happening in US. So in the year 2000, the entire debt of US government was $6 trillion. In just matter of 25 years, as we speak right now, the debt of US is approximately $36 trillion. Yes, you heard it right. In just matter of 25 years, their udhar or debt has increased from 6 trillion to 36 trillion. That means it has increased by 6 times. Okay, in just matter of 25 years. Now, fine, you can say US can take debt. It's a large economy. But how do you figure out how large is the debt? a metric which is used to figure out कि कोई भी इंसान ने या कंपनी ने या देश ने कितना उधार लिया है. The formula to figure out how risky it is to use a formula called as debt to GDP. कि आपकी कंट्री का डेट कितना है और आपकी जीडीपी कितनी है. As we speak right now, the debt to GDP level of America is around 120%. Yes, you heard it right. It's 120%. In 2000, it was around 50%. And as we speak right now, it's 120%. Let's go back into history. When did US had such high debt levels? It was back during the World War II. They had a similar debt level of 120% of their GDP. Obviously, after that, they kept on reducing their debt. But at that time, they could afford to have high debt to GDP because that was a different situation. It was war-like situation, and countries across the world were increasing debt to fight wars. And then America came out very strongly because what happened after World War II? It was not fought broadly on US soil. US country as a country didn't got destroyed. Europe got destroyed. Asia got destroyed. Russia got destroyed. Japan, a lot of other countries got destroyed. US was able to build the economy because it was the largest economy and it didn't got much destroyed during the World War II. So it became a dominant power right after World War II. As we speak right now, it became a dominant power. It was reducing its debt, but then post 2020, it again started increasing its debt because whenever there used to be a problem of recession or any global scenario, the simple thing what they used to do was print money and basically borrow money and solve their problems. It worked for a certain period of time, but now things are different. Today, their debt to GDP is again 120%. It's fine. They could have still not reacted to it. But what has happened in just 20 years, their close competitor, which 20 years back was not a close competitor, there was a large difference between America and China. China's GDP in year 2000 was approximately $1.7 trillion. As we speak right now, it's around $17.5 trillion. That means in just matter of 20 years, their economy has almost moved from $1.7 trillion to $17.5 trillion. And it is very close to America's GDP. So what has happened? There are two economies which are almost similar in size. Okay, because till now, US was dominating the entire world, but now China has become a close second, a very close second. US is sitting on a lot of debt. And now America somewhere believes, you know what, in the last 20 years, America started with low-cost manufacturing, making toys and basic stuff. But today they have entered into high-end manufacturing. They're even talking about building airplanes and high manufacturing stuff, which was earlier the domain of America. At the same time, technology and AI is also something which actually the US dominated the entire world. Today, when China is becoming very competitive when it comes to AI, global technologies, solar, manufacturing. And that's the reason the world order is getting shifted, and the world order is basically the new alliances are following, are building over here, and new dynamics are playing over here. And this is why US is basically, or Donald Trump is reacting in a different way. He's saying basically, okay, so all these years, and what you can see, the bar chart over here is the tariff rates. Okay, after the World War II, you would realize that America has been reducing its tariffs, which we called in simple terms import duty, or what we say is custom duty. So America practically had zero custom duty all these years. They were buying the cheap stuff from America, from Mexico, from Canada, from China, from Vietnam, from Mexico, from India, from Bangladesh, from European countries. They were buying a lot of cheap stuff. Okay, when I say cheap means the low cost goods and services. But they were putting all the energies on high-end stuff, AI, technology, internet, designing, marketing, building new ideas, new concepts, which were more value-added. But the so-called manufacturing job, or the so-called labor-intensive, or the so-called jobs which don't even support the environment or hamper the environment, those jobs were outsourced across the world. The world benefited because of that. America benefited a lot. But last 20 years, China, predominantly an export market, has grown in leaps and bounds, and today it's become a close competitor. And that's the reason why you can see Donald Trump and his behavior slightly changing. And he's saying, okay, till now I had very low tariffs. Now I don't want to have, I can't have low tariffs. I would put tariffs on across the world. I think he's mainly talking about China because a lot of goods and services are coming from China, mainly manufacturing goods. Like a simple example, like a electric car, BYD, it's manufactured at a very low cost. It can just flood the entire American auto industry. Okay, so that's the reason why America is panicking and it's increasing tariffs across the world. But I think its main idea is China. Because of this, okay, because of this tariff war, because what has happened, the manufacturing of a lot of majority of the American companies, whether it's Apple or whether it's Nike or any of the companies, their manufacturing was predominantly into China, into Vietnam, into Mexico, into Canada, even into India. But now suddenly when tariffs come in, the cost of these goods, the landing cost of these goods in America would increase. And then at the same time, the profitability of these companies would come down because of increase in prices, the demand for these goods might come down. And what is happening? Donald Trump is ad hoc talking about tariffs. He's changing his views. This is causing uncertainty in the market because business people are not able to understand. Should I import from China? Should I start a manufacturing plant in India? Where should I produce? And manufacturing plants are not like services where you can shift your offices overnight. It takes years to build a manufacturing plant. It takes years to change the manufacturing from one country to different country. A lot of market participants across the world are not able to understand what is his final decision, what is his final tariff he wants to put. Will he change those tariffs? And because of these uncertainties, the world predominantly is slightly in an uncertain zone, and markets by nature don't like anxiety. They don't like uncertainty. So whenever there is anxiety and uncertainty, market participants react in different ways. Now, obviously, as traders, somebody would be bullish, somebody will be bearish, somebody will be selling, somebody will be buying, and things will happen. Now, as investors, as logical people, what should we do? As logical investors, we are here for a long term. At the end of the day, we are investing into good, amazing Indian businesses. And India is a growth economy. It's a large economy. We have a population of 140 crores. It is almost 1/6 of the entire world population stays in our country. We have a very young country with almost 50% of population below the age of 28. It's a young country. And we all know young people are very important for growth of any economy because they work also and they will spend also, because that's the age. Around 30 to 50 is the age where people earn. Okay, and they contribute to the economy and they also spend. And that also basically brings amazing amount of growth to the economy. We have democracy and digitalization. The beauty of digitalization is that India's problem of scale, which is population, actually gets solved by digitalization. Classic example is Aadhaar, a moderate cost, but it gave identity to everybody just with thumbprints and your eye retina. Okay, similarly UPI or even something called Digi Yatra. Okay, something like that where mass problems of identity can be solved because technically with digitalization, the initial cost is very low, but it can scale up in a far bigger way. Even a simple idea of Jan Dhan, where we were able to open 30 crore account in just matter of few days, because ideally doing it physically, it would take years. And at the same time, it costs money. Opening one bank account might cost even 1,000 rupees for one individual, but it was done at a fraction of a cost only because of digitalization. So the ingredients for India growth story is amazing. And I'll just show you this slide. And this slide for me is the most important slide in the entire presentation. It just shows you the slide of India's 45 years of real GDP growth. GDP growth means हर साल इंडिया की उत्पादन कितने प्रतिशत से बढ़ता है. Okay, India में last 45 years में we never saw a recession, barring one year which was 2020. बस सिर्फ उस साल हमने recession देखा, उसको मंदी बोलते हैं. Otherwise, India में कभी-कभी we see a slowdown. Broadly, India's GDP is in the range of 4.5-5%, and upwards around 8 and 8.5%. That's the range. Around 5 to 8% is where India's GDP keeps on changing. Sometimes it's 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7, 7.5, 8, 8.5, and things like that. On an average, India's GDP grows around 6, 6.5%. That's the trend of the last 45 years. India was a growing economy, is a growing economy, and for a long period of time, India will be a very good, large, it's the largest, fastest growing economy. When I say Okay, there might be economies growing faster than us, but such a large economy growing so fast is a very big thing. So India's story is intact. Indian businesses are amazing. Okay, it's basically a diversified industry which is available over here. And also, I'll repeat, markets were volatile, are volatile, and will be volatile. I understand we are seeing a period of volatility, and I understand that when you see your hard-earned money maybe in negative or maybe with low returns, it hurts. But that's the nature of equity markets. And we never recommend all investors to put all their money in equity mutual funds. And this is where financial planning comes into picture, where we tell investors to put some money into equity mutual funds, some money into gold, some money into real estate, some money into fixed income, and diversifying their money across various asset class. And also understand a very simple, important principle of investing, that not all asset classes do well at all points of time. Like last 6, 7, 8 months, gold is doing very well. Equity might not be doing well. Indians hold so much of gold. So gold is doing well, equity might not be doing well. And then there are periods when gold is not doing well, but equity does very well. And that's why we say do financial planning, think long term. I understand it's human to basically think about short term, but thinking long term is what creates wealth over a longer period of time. Something very interesting, and this is a very interesting chart about the capex. Capex means something which is getting built in roads, dams, bridges. Look at the quantum of money which is getting spent on capex. Like last year itself, government spent around 11 lakh crores on capex. What is 11 lakh crores? जो 2000 से लेके 2010 तक पूरा capex जोड़ लोगे वो approximately 11 lakh crore बनता है. That's the amount of money which is going into hardcore physical roads, dams, bridges, metros, airports, and things like that. Lastly, I'll just end up with a few basic ideas. This is also about stock market. A lot of people want to invest in direct stocks. My simple submission to all of you is please don't do it. A lot of people want to chase sectors also. And this is a very interesting matrix of sectors doing well and bad. You will realize that the winners keep on changing. Sometimes IT is doing well, sometimes pharma is doing well, sometimes telecom is doing well. So the winners keep on changing. And that's why having diversified portfolios across flexi cap, multi cap, large and mid cap, and dividend yield focus fund makes great sense. Lastly, I understand when we are investing into businesses, our thought has to be like businessmen. Businessmen को दो बात समझ आती है कि मेरा टाइम होराइजन साल का नहीं है, डेकेड्स का है. 10 साल, 15 साल, 20 साल, इस तरीके से एक बिजनेसमैन सोचता है. और दूसरी बात, जब आप बिजनेस में डालते हो, आपको ये भी पता होना चाहिए, द जर्नी ऑफ बिजनेसमैन इज फुल ऑफ अप्स एंड डाउन्स. इसमें अच्छा वक्त, बुरा वक्त, उतार चढ़ाव लगा रहता है. Okay, but in the long term, it does well. And that's the nature of equity market. If you're an equity investor, we need to build that kind of mentality, thinking decades and understanding and absorbing the pain, okay, in the short term. And who understands pain far better than all the market participants, because you demonstrate discipline, you demonstrate patience, you demonstrate how to accept pain and not get dejected by that. You have to bring those same principles over here. Think long term, be patient, and accept short term pain. Because if you cannot accept short term pain, it is very difficult to enjoy the long term returns what equity can offer. With this, I will end the session. If in case any participants have any questions, we are happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Amitji. It was, I think, very, very well covered in such a short time. And so I have one question, and I'll request others also who have their questions, they can post it to us here only. We will select those. So a friend of mine says, with the market uncertainty, would it not be wise to take out my money now and reinvest once the market starts recovering?
आपने बहुत सही बात पूछी कि एक बार तूफान खत्म हो जाए, एक बार तूफान, once let the तूफान go away, उसके बाद बाहर निकलते हैं आराम से. अभी तूफान में जाने की जरूरत क्या है? बट एक बात समझिए कि एक मार्केट में एक बहुत अच्छी बात बोली जाती है, अच्छे गुड प्राइजेस, ओके, एंड गुड नैरेटिव्स डोंट गो टुगेदर. ओके, आपको चीजें तभी सस्ती मिलती हैं जब दुनिया में अनसर्टेनिटी होती है. जब दुनिया में अनसर्टेनिटी नहीं होती है तो कभी भी आपको वो चीजें कभी सस्ती नहीं मिलेंगी. ये दुनिया का नियम है. कोविड के टाइम पे दुनिया में बहुत अनसर्टेनिटी थी, तभी आपको चीजें सस्ती मिली. जब चीजें एकदम ठीक हो जाती है ना, तो चीज कभी भी आपको उस समय सस्ते में नहीं मिलेगा. इनफैक्ट आई वुड जस्ट गिव यू कपल ऑफ माई things advice over here. I would use a word advice, maybe like suggestions or maybe some viewpoints. SIPs को तो SIPs को स्टॉप करना है कि नहीं करना, वो तो थॉट आना ही नहीं चाहिए. SIPs तो परपेचुअली चलनी चाहिए. इनफैक्ट SIPs आर सेलिब्रेटिंग राइट नाउ बिकॉज आज लोअर वैल्यूएशन पे वो इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, उन्हें यूनिट ज्यादा मिल रहे हैं. SIPs enjoy and thrive for these moments. वो तो बोलते हैं ऐसी मार्केट कभी कभी गिरनी चाहिए, थोड़ी और गिरे, हमें यूनिट ज्यादा मिले. सो SIPs तो कभी भूल के स्टॉप मत करना. अभी आती है कि आपने ऑलरेडी इन्वेस्ट कर दिया है और वो डिसेंट अमाउंट है. सो अगर आपने ये पैसा 10, 12, 15 साल के लिए डाला है, तो मैं आपको यही बोलूंगा कि आज जो हो रहा है ना, ये चीजें आप हजारों बार एक्सपीरियंस करोगे इंटायर जर्नी में. आज आप ट्रंप की अनसर्टेनिटी बोल रहे हो, उससे पहले कोविड की अनसर्टेनिटी थी, उससे पहले रशिया यूक्रेन वॉर की अनसर्टेनिटी थी, उसके बाद इजराइल की अनसर्टेनिटी थी, उसके बाद क्रिप्टो क्रैश, बॉन्ड प्राइसेस की अनसर्टेनिटी थी. हर एक समय कोई ना कोई अनसर्टेनिटी लगेगी. एक समस्या खत्म होगी ना, फिर दूसरी समस्या आ जाएगी. सो आपको एक बात समझनी है. आप टीवी देखोगे ना, आपको हमेशा लगेगा पूरी दुनिया खत्म हो रही है, समस्याएं चल रही है. पर अगर आप व्यापार देखोगे, आपको रियलाइज होगा इतना बड़ा देश है, इतनी बड़ी आबादी है, 150 करोड़ लोग हैं, ये खा रहे हैं, पी रहे हैं, कंज्यूम कर रहे हैं, फ्रिज भी खरीद रहे हैं, वॉशिंग मशीन भी खरीद रहे हैं, घूम भी रहे हैं, गाड़ी भी खरीद रहे हैं, दवाइयां भी खा रहे हैं, बैंक भी जा रहे हैं, म्यूचुअल फंड भी ले रहे हैं, इंश्योरेंस भी ले रहे हैं, घर पे पेंट भी करा रहे हैं, रोड भी बन रही है, डैम भी बन रही है, इकोनॉमी चल रही है. बट इनके सेंटिमेंट्स बदलते रहते हैं. और मैं आपको फिर बताऊंगा, आपको बोलते हैं ना कि अगर आपको चांद सितारे देखने हैं तो आपको टेलीस्कोप देखना यूज करना पड़ेगा. आप चांद सितारे माइक्रोस्कोप से नहीं देख सकते. प्रॉब्लम क्या होती है निवेशक की, कि वो माइक्रोस्कोप लेके चांद सितारे देखने की कोशिश करता है. प्रॉब्लम इज इन माइक्रोस्कोप छोटी चीज बड़ी दिखाई देती है. आप सुबह से लेकर रात तक डोनाल्ड ट्रंप की न्यूज सुनते रहोगे तो आपको लगेगा अरे क्या हो रहा है, दुनिया खत्म हो रही है. बट अगर आप 15 साल 20 साल का व्यू है आपका, तो ये चीजें मैटर भी नहीं करती है. क्या हो रहा है, टैक्स तो लग रहा है, कोई इंपोर्ट ड्यूटी बढ़ा रहा है, कल बढ़ाएगा, कम करेगा. व्यापार क्या होगा, एक कंट्री में नहीं होगा, शायद व्यापार इंडिया में आ जाए. जैसे आपने एप्पल की न्यूज सुनी होगी, एप्पल ऑलमोस्ट 6 टन ऑफ आईफोन्स इंडिया में फटाफट बना रहा है, बिकॉज यूएस चाइना पे टैरिफ बहुत ज्यादा है, तो अपनी सारी डिमांड इंडिया से फिलहाल पूरी कर रहा है. 6 टन ऑफ आईफोन्स एयरलिफ्ट करके लेके जा रहा है. सो व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू टेल यू इज दैट कि शायद इस पूरी सिचुएशन में हमारी रिलेशनशिप वेस्ट के साथ बहुत अच्छी हो रही है. हम एक लार्ज बड़ी इकोनॉमी है. वी माइट बेनिफिट आउट ऑफ ऑल दिस थिंग्स व्हाट इज हैपनिंग. हमारी खुद की स्टोरी, खुद की इकोनॉमिक स्टोरी, कंजम्पशन स्टोरी बहुत इंटैक्ट है, बहुत स्ट्रांग है. सो आई डोंट थिंक इन चीजों पे कभी 1% भी वरी करना चाहिए. मैं आपको ज्यादा नहीं बोला, 1% भी वरी नहीं करना चाहिए. आपको सिर्फ डिसिप्लिन, टाइम और पेशेंस देना है. मैं आपको ये प्रॉमिस नहीं कह रहा कि यहाँ से मार्केट नहीं गिर सकती, गिर सकती है, और गिर भी गई थोड़ी सी तो क्या फर्क पड़ता है. हम निवेशक 10-15 साल के हैं, तो ये चीजें मैटर क्यों करती है.
थैंक यू सर. मेरे पास मेरे दोस्तों के सवाल आ रहे हैं तो वो जरा इम्पोर्टेंस रखते हैं. अच्छा, एक है, व्हाट शुड बी द स्ट्रेटजी फॉर समवन हु विशेस टू इन्वेस्ट लंप सम मनी एट दिस स्टेज.
इसकी 2 स्ट्रैटेजी हैं. देखो, इट ऑल डिपेंड्स. सो सुनील जी विल बी द बेस्ट पोजीशन टू अंडरस्टैंड योर गोल्स, योर रिस्क एपेटाइट. देखो क्या होता है ना, बिहेवियर हर एक इंसान का अलग अलग है. और आपने भी खुद एक्सपीरियंस किया होगा एज मैनेजिंग अ लॉट ऑफ अ टीम, कि हर एक आपके जो आपको रिपोर्ट करते हैं, हर एक का बिहेवियर कितना अलग अलग होता है. हर एक की डर की क्षमता भी अलग अलग होती है. सो मेरा बहुत सिंपल थॉट है कि आपका जो रिस्क एपेटाइट है वो सुनील जी फाइंड करेंगे. इस पे 2 तरीके हैं इन्वेस्ट करने के. अगर आपका रिस्क एपेटाइट है और गोल 10 साल के बाद है, तो आप एक अच्छे डाइवर्सिफाइड फंड में निवेश कर सकते हो, फ्लेक्सी कैप, मल्टी कैप और हाइब्रिड फंड. पर अगर आपको डर लग रहा है और आपको लगता है कि मुझे सारा पैसा एक समय नहीं डालना, और शायद मैं रिग्रेट कर दूंगा अगर डाल दूंगा और कल मार्केट गिर गई, तो हम कहते हैं इस पैसे को आप ट्रांचेस में डाल सकते हो. इसको बोलते हैं सिस्टमैटिक ट्रांसफर प्लान. ये पैसे को आपने एक सेफ जगह पे रख दिया और सिस्टमैटिक ट्रांसफर करके अगले 3 महीने में, 6 महीने में आस्ते आस्ते करके वो निवेश कर दिया. उससे जो रिग्रेट होता है ना कि मैं सारा अभी डाल दिया और मार्केट गिर गई, तो वो क्या करेगा, अगले 6 महीने में या 3 महीने में वो पैसे वो डालेगा. उससे डर कम लगता है, फर्क ज्यादा नहीं पड़ेगा, उससे डर कम लगता है, बिकॉज आपका पैसा आस्ते आस्ते जा रहा है और छोटे छोटे अमाउंट में जा रहा है, तो डर कम लगता है. बट रिटर्न्स लॉन्ग टर्म में इतने फर्क नहीं पड़ेंगे, बिकॉज लॉन्ग टर्म में तो मार्केट ऊपर ही जाती है.
थैंक यू सर. Why small cap fluctuate so much? Any need to switch?
देखो स्मॉल कैप का मतलब ही है, ओके, लोगों को लगता है स्मॉल कैप मतलब स्मॉल रिस्क, नहीं। स्मॉल कैप में रिटर्न अच्छे बन सकते हैं लंबे समय पे, बट स्मॉल कैप में जो उतार चढ़ाव होता है ना, वो सबसे ज्यादा होता है। ये कभी, और ये इतिहास दिखाता है, हमेशा होता है। जब बढ़ते हैं देन दे डू वेल, दे डू वेरी वेल। जब गिरते हैं तो बहुत ज्यादा गिरते हैं। देखो कहते हैं ना कि दुनिया में कोई भी चीज फ्री नहीं होती है, सिर्फ माँ के प्यार के अलावा। द ब्यूटी इज इफ स्मॉल कैप गिव्स यू अमेजिंग हाई रिटर्न्स ओवर लॉन्ग पीरियड ऑफ टाइम, तो इसका एक कीमत है, एक प्राइस है। द प्राइस इज हाई वोलेटिलिटी, एंड दैट्स व्हाई वी टेल क्लाइंट्स कि अपने पैसे को इक्विटी में, उतना ही इक्विटी में, स्मॉल कैप में डालो जितना आप रिस्क ले सकते हो। डोंट पुट टू मच इन स्मॉल कैप, prefer more of diversified funds for creating wealth from a long term perspective. And diversified funds actually have got diversified funds actually have got small caps in their portfolio.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is the review of mutual funds in falling market required, or it should remain invested?
देखो आप रिव्यू, देखो कहते हैं ना कि देखने से कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता। इनफैक्ट हिंदी में कहावत है, पैसे गिनने से पैसे कम हो जाते हैं। देखो आप, मुझे पता है कभी कभी यही इंटरेस्टिंग बात लगती है कि गोल्ड, ओके, जैसे बढ़ रहा है, और अगर गोल्ड गिर भी जाए तो हमारे जो, ओके, जैसे वुमेन इन्वेस्टर्स जो हैं, जिनको हम होम मेकर्स कहते हैं, ओके, आजकल काफी लोग इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, उनको हमने कभी एक बार देखा नहीं है कि वो गोल्ड का प्राइस रोज मॉनिटर करते हैं। वो विश्वास में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, फेथ में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं। और जहां फेथ होता है और विश्वास होता है ना, तो वहां पे आपको मॉनिटर करने की इतनी जरूरत पड़ती नहीं है। एसआईपी कर रहे हो तो क्या मॉनिटर करना, ये तो 20 साल की है, तो क्या चिंता करना। और अगर आप 10 साल के लिए डाल रहे हो, 15 साल के लिए डाल रहे हो, मैं आपको फिर बताऊंगा कि अगले 15 साल में आप अपने मार्केट को, अपने पोर्टफोलियो को एटलीस्ट 30 से 40 बार गिरते हुए देखोगे। 30 से 40 बार, ओके, वो बहुत नेचुरल है, दैट्स द नेचर ऑफ इक्विटी मार्केट। सो अगर मॉनिटर कर भी लोगे तो कुछ फर्क पड़ने वाला है नहीं, बट ठीक है, यू कैन ऑलवेज मॉनिटर योर पोर्टफोलियो, देख के कि मेरा पोर्टफोलियो में एलोकेशन कितनी है, इक्विटी ज्यादा है, फिक्स्ड इनकम ज्यादा है, गोल्ड ज्यादा है, वो रीबैलेंसिंग करनी चाहिए। बट मेरा पॉइंट सिंपल है, और ये बहुत बड़े बिहेवियर साइंटिस्ट बोलते हैं, उनका नाम है डैनियल कानेमन, उनको नोबेल प्राइज मिला था। वो कहते हैं जो अपना पोर्टफोलियो बहुत फ्रीक्वेंटली चेक करते हैं ना, उनका लंबे समय में रिटर्न थोड़े कम बनते हैं। दिस क्लियरली शोज दैट पैसा देखने से एक्चुअली पैसा बढ़ता नहीं, इनफैक्ट शायद कम हो सकता है।
Sir, we are getting questions. I don't know how long you'll give us your. You've been very patient with us. One question is very pertinent: is how is India going to get affected due to the tariff in future, and when do you see things improving?
देखो टैरिफ्स तो डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प जी उनको लगा रहे हैं जो उनके साथ बहुत ज्यादा ट्रेड डेफिसिट रखते हैं। ट्रेड डेफिसिट का मतलब एक्सपोर्ट्स माइनस इंपोर्ट्स। इंडिया अमेरिका को एक्सपोर्ट करता क्या है? रॉ मटेरियल एक्सपोर्ट करता है। इंडिया मेनली उनको सर्विसेज एक्सपोर्ट करता है, ओके, जैसे आईटी कंपनी है, ओके, वो ज्यादा एक्सपोर्ट करता है। वी एक्सपोर्ट लॉट ऑफ सर्विसेज, उसमें एक्चुअली हमारा ट्रेड सरप्लस है। हम ज्यादा सर्विसेज देते हैं, पर ऐसा नहीं है कि हम उनकी सर्विसेज नहीं लेते। हम जो व्हाट्सएप यूज कर रहे हैं, इंस्टा, गूगल, जो भी सब है, वो भी हमसे बहुत कमाते हैं, बहुत कमाते हैं। मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में बेसिकली हम उनको रॉ मटेरियल देते हैं, उनसे इनफैक्ट हाई एंड मैन्युफैक्चरिंग लेते हैं, कैपिटल गुड्स और हाई एंड मैन्युफैक्चरिंग लेते हैं उनसे। एक्चुअली हमारा जो डेफिसिट है ना, रेवेन्यू माइनस एक्सपेंडिचर, सॉरी, द इंपोर्ट्स माइनस एक्सपोर्ट, बहुत ही छोटा कंपोनेंट है। इट इज ओनली 0.5% ऑफ आवर जीडीपी। इट्स अ वेरी स्मॉल पोर्शन। अभी एक्चुअली अगर इंडिया को उनके साथ मैनेज भी करना है ना, जो हम ऑयल लेट्स से सऊदी से लेते हैं, ईरान से लेते हैं, रशिया से लेते हैं, आज अमेरिका काफी ऑयल प्रोड्यूस करने की बात कर रहा है। अगर हम वो ऑयल इन कंट्रीज से ज्यादा लेने के बदले अमेरिका से ले लें, स्ट्रेट अवे हमारा जो डेफिसिट है अमेरिका के साथ, वो एक्चुअली सरप्लस हो जाएगा। हम ज्यादा लेंगे सामान अमेरिका से, तो उस सिचुएशन में तो हम पे टैरिफ बहुत ही कम लगेगा, या शायद ना भी लगे। तो आइडियली इन दिस होल सिचुएशन एक्चुअली इट माइट वर्क आउट दैट इंडिया के लिए एक्चुअली सब बेनिफिट हो रहा है, बिकॉज हम पे टैरिफ भी कम लगेंगे, हम उनको इंपोर्ट भी कम कर रहे हैं, उनसे ले भी हम सामान, ऑयल ले लेंगे और कुछ सामान ले लेंगे। सो आइडियली इंडिया से उनको इतनी प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। एंड जिस तरीके से वर्ल्ड अलायंसेस हो रही है ना, इंडिया इज अलाइनिंग टू द वेस्ट। इंडिया और यूएस, अगर आप, आई एम श्योर ऑल ऑफ यू लुक एट ग्लोबल पॉलिटिक्स सो क्लोजली, इंडिया और वेस्ट कभी इतने क्लोज थे ही नहीं। आई थिंक इंडिया और वेस्ट के जो रिश्ते हैं, because of the world dynamics, because of China increasing and other stuff, India is getting much more closer to the West. So I think India can benefit for what is happening right now. Yes, short term में volatility आ सकती है, but long term में ideally इंडिया को खोने के लिए कुछ भी नहीं है, पाने के लिए ज्यादा है.
सर मेरे पास बहुत सारे क्वेश्चन आ रहे हैं. आई डोंट थिंक विल बी एबल टू टेक ऑल, बट एक मुझे बताइए, किसी ने बोला है कि गोल्ड में कभी भी पैसा कम नहीं होता है. व्हाट्सएप के थ्रू मेरे पास 1-to-1 आया है कि गोल्ड में कभी भी कम नहीं होता, तो हम हमेशा गोल्ड क्यों नहीं लेते हैं? रीसेंसी वाइज
सर नहीं, गोल्ड क्यों नहीं लेते? इंडिया हैज गोल्ड रिजर्व्स ऑफ इंडियन हाउसहोल्ड्स हैव गॉट 25 मेट्रिक टन्स ऑफ गोल्ड. जितना यूएस की सरकार के पास गोल्ड है ना, उससे 4 गुना गोल्ड इंडियन हाउसहोल्ड्स के पास है. इंडिया की सरकार के पास गोल्ड नहीं है. इंडिया के सरकार के पास फॉरेन रिजर्व्स है, यूएस डॉलर है, बट इंडिया के लोगों के पास प्रीडोमिनेंटली आज यूएस से 4 गुना ज्यादा गोल्ड है.
So, the idea, sorry, interrupting you. People are saying, why should I invest in gold?
अच्छा, why should I invest in gold?
Why should I not invest in gold? Because gold है जो लगातार ऊपर जाता है, और इक्विटी तो ऐसे वॉलेटाइल रहता है.
देखो क्या होता है, इसको आपने सुनील जी बहुत प्यारी तरीके से समझाया. इट्स कॉल्ड रीसेंसी बायस. जो रिसेंट होता है ना, वो हमारे दिमाग पे रहता है. रिसेंट बातें हमारे दिमाग पे बहुत हावी करती हैं, और पुरानी बातें हम भूल जाते हैं. Last 1 year gold has given phenomenal returns, 40% रिटर्न. मतलब इतिहास देखोगे तो बहुत रेयरली कभी ऐसा होता है. और गोल्ड ने दिया और सिल्वर ने भी दिया, चांदी ने भी दिया, नो डाउट अबाउट इट. नाउ उसका मेन रीजन ये है बिकॉज चाइना ने गोल्ड काफी खरीदा है. चाइना की गवर्नमेंट ने गोल्ड बहुत खरीदा है. चाइना ने अपने बैंकों को बोला गोल्ड खरीदो. चाइना ने अपने इंश्योरेंस कंपनियों को बोला गोल्ड खरीदो. ठीक है, बिकॉज ऑफ द, देखो गोल्ड की सप्लाई तो उतनी है, डिमांड बढ़ गई तो गोल्ड प्राइसेस मूव्ड अप. नाउ there are long periods where gold gives no returns, zero returns. Just to give an example, 2014 से लेके 2019 5 साल gold gave 0% return. At that time किसी ने बोला नहीं गोल्ड खराब है, अच्छा नहीं कर रहा है, बट लोग खरीद रहे थे. इनफैक्ट जब गोल्ड करेक्ट होता है ना, तो उसको करेक्शन भी नहीं बोलते, उसको क्रैश भी नहीं बोलते, उसको फॉल भी नहीं बोलते. हिंदी भाषा में इसको बोलते हैं गोल्ड सस्ता हो गया. ओके, बट मार्केट गिर जाए इसको क्रैश बोलते हैं. कोई नहीं बोलती मार्केट सस्ती हो गई. So, ये हमारी टर्मिनोलॉजीज है. और इसलिए जो गोल्ड में निवेश करते हैं ना, जो वुमेन इन्वेस्टर्स है, वो बहुत समझदार है. जब चीज गिरती है ना, बोलते हैं गोल्ड सस्ता हो गया तो गोल्ड खरीदते हैं. मार्केट में उल्टा होता है, लोग बोलते हैं मार्केट क्रैश हो गई, तो वो प्रॉब्लम है. आई हैव नेवर टोल्ड यू कि आपको सारा पैसा इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड में लगाना है. एज अ स्मार्ट इन्वेस्टर आप चारों में डालिए. इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड में डालिए, गोल्ड में डालिए, रियल एस्टेट, अपना एक छोटा सा घर भी बनाइए प्यारा सा. एक पक्षी को भी घोंसला चाहिए होता है. और थोड़ा पैसा एफडी और फिक्स्ड इनकम में भी रखिए. चारों में डालिए. चारों का परसेंटेज कितना होना चाहिए वो आपको सुनील जी बताएंगे, आपके बिहेवियर के हिसाब से, आपके गोल्स के हिसाब से, आपके रिस्क एपेटाइट के हिसाब से. इक्विटी के पास सबसे ज्यादा क्षमता होती है रिटर्न्स बनाने की लंबे समय पे, बट इक्विटी में उतार चढ़ाव भी सबसे ज्यादा होता है. गोल्ड में रिटर्न्स दूसरे नंबर पे आता है जनरली, बट गोल्ड में उतार चढ़ाव थोड़े कम होते हैं, बट रिटर्न्स दूसरे नंबर पे आता है. तीसरे नंबर पे रियल एस्टेट आता है, बट उसमें इलिक्विडिटी बहुत ज्यादा होती है. सबसे कम रिटर्न फिक्स्ड इनकम देता है, बट उसका एडवांटेज ये होता है कि उसमें उतार चढ़ाव ना के बराबर होता है. सो चारों को डालना है. इसको हम सिंपल भाषा में बोल सकते हैं एसेट एलोकेशन.
Sir, one last question, because I think we are nearing the end of time. So somebody has given a longish question, but the gist is India has a 30 lakh crore deficit. What are the chances of Indian government defaulting on this debt, and how would it affect on our savings?
See, never look it in a amount wise. इंडिया का जो डेफिसिट है, इसको दो तरीके बांट सकते हैं. इंडिया का जो फिस्कल डेफिसिट है, फिस्कल डेफिसिट मतलब आमदनी माइनस खर्चा. गवर्नमेंट की आमदनी इज इन टैक्सेस, कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स, इनकम टैक्स, कस्टम ड्यूटीज एंड ऑल द रेवेन्यूज, जीएसटी, वो आमदनी है. एंड देन यू हैव खर्चा. अगर आप इस साल का बजट देखोगे, इंडिया का फिस्कल डेफिसिट इज 4.5% ऑफ द एंटायर जीडीपी. ओके, जो पिछले साल था, इस साल उसको 4.1% कर दिया है. 4.1% डेफिसिट मतलब आमदनी और एक्सपेंस का डिफरेंस इज अ वेरी वेरी लो डिफरेंस, बहुत ही मॉडरेट डिफरेंस है अगर आप उस संख्या में देखो. दूसरा है हमारा पूरा जो उधार है एज कंपेयर टू जीडीपी इट्स अराउंड 65%. अमेरिका इज 120%, वी आर 65%, तो वो भी चिंता की बात नहीं है. तीसरी बात, हमने कंट्रीज, पता डिफॉल्ट कब होती है? कंट्री तब डिफॉल्ट होती है जब आप बोरो करते हो फॉरेन करेंसी में. जैसे इंडिया ने अगर बोरो किया है डॉलर्स में, ओके, लेट्स से हमने अपने बॉन्ड्स इशू किए हैं जहां पे डॉलर में हमने पैसा उठाया है, तब कंट्रीज डिफॉल्ट हो सकती है बिकॉज दे हैव टू पे इन डॉलर. इंडियन गवर्नमेंट जितना भी पैसा उन्होंने बोरो किया है, all the money which they have borrowed is in basically Indian rupees. तो उन्होंने पैसा रुपीज में बोरो किया है और उन्होंने पैसा रुपीज में पे करना है लोगों को. A country cannot default if it is borrowing in their own country because they can always print money and give it back to the people. So default का chances है ही नहीं. Default कब होता है? जैसे अर्जेंटीना डिफॉल्ट हुई थी, या फॉर एग्जाम्पल ओके रशिया डिफॉल्ट हुआ था. कंट्रीज डिफॉल्ट व्हेन यू बोरो इन फॉरेन करेंसी. इंडिया को फिलहाल जरूरत ही नहीं पड़ी फॉरेन से मांगने की, बिकॉज इंडिया में ही पीपीएफ के थ्रू, एलआईसी के थ्रू, बहुत सारे इन्वेस्टमेंट आइडियाज के थ्रू वैसे ही गवर्नमेंट पैसा उठा सकती है. गवर्नमेंट कभी कभी टेम्प्ट होती है कि बाहर से पैसा उठा लूं क्या डॉलर में, बिकॉज बाहर से जब पैसा उठाते हो ना तो ब्याज दर बहुत कम है. लेट्स से यूएस में एक टाइम पे इंटरेस्ट रेट 1% पे था, तो गवर्नमेंट टेम्प्ट होती है कि मैं बॉन्ड इशू करूं यूएस में, डॉलर में पैसा उठाऊं, 1% में पैसा उठा सकती हूँ. बट फिलहाल इंडिया को कभी जरूरत नहीं पड़ी, और कभी जरूरत भी पड़ेगी तो थोड़ा उठाएगी, विच इज वेरी नॉमिनल. हमारी सारी बोरोइंग आईएनआर में, रुपीज में है, जिसको गवर्नमेंट हमेशा पे कर सकती है. नहीं पे कर पाएगी तो पैसा प्रिंट करके पे कर देगी, कोई चिंता की बात नहीं.
Thank you, Amit ji. You've been very patient. You've patiently taken many questions. I'm sure there are some more questions, but that I will be able to manage. And
Sure,
I
Sunil.
cannot request you to continue indefinitely. Thank you very much. Very enlightening session. And thank you. On behalf of everyone, I wish to convey our sincere thanks to take out time on a Sunday, sir.
Thank you, Sunil ji. Thanks all participants. Wish you a very happy Baisakhi. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.